Hello, welcome to lesson 67. This is writing tenths and hundredths as decimal numbers. Now we've been spending much time, quite a bit of time with fractions, and we've also been spending more time with decimal numbers. So I have right here what's called a common fraction. Whenever you see this term common fraction, that means it's just a normal fraction. It's just another word or an official term for our fractions that we usually see, meaning it's also not a mixed number. It's just a regular fraction with a numerator and denominator. And this is our decimal point. So if I have 1 over 10, this says 1/10 as a fraction, and as a decimal point, my first place value after the decimal point is my tenths place, so I write this as 1/10 in the tenths place. So it's very simple and very basic so far. Between writing with fractions and decimal points interchangeably. Okay, so we're going to look at example 1. It says write the fraction 3/10 as a common fraction, means just as a regular fraction, write 3/10. Then write it as a decimal number. I want you to go ahead and try this by yourself to see what you can do. So to write the fraction 3/10, I would write 3 over 10, that says 3/10. Then if I want to write it as a decimal number, I need to put my 3 in the tenths place. Well, that's the first decimal place value I have after the decimal point. So 3/10 is also written as 3/10. Now, it does not matter whether you have the 0 or not, as long as you have your decimal point and the 3 right after. I just put a 0 as a placeholder so it doesn't just look like period 3, and I know it's an actual decimal number. So that's the only reason I'm putting the 0, but you do not need the 0. It is not important or not included, not necessarily, needed. All right, example 3 says name the shaded circles as a mixed number and as a decimal number. So looking here, and since I'm also doing decimal numbers, you can automatically assume this is going to be split up into tenths, especially the circle is here going to be tenths or hundredths, and I know the circle is not split up into 100 equal parts because that would take way too long, and Ms. Conic would not do that on the board, would not draw that, we'd spend a lot of time, could use technology and computers for that. So it says name the shaded circles as a mixed number and decimal number. So what do I have? How many shaded circles do I have as a mixed number first? Because that's what we're most familiar with. Go ahead and write down your answer. And you should have gotten 1. One whole circle is shaded and 1/10. So 1 and 1 out of 10 of the circles are shaded. So how would I write that as a decimal number? Well, my decimal point always says and, so I write 1 and 1/10. So 1.1, 1 and 1/10. Now we're going to go ahead and look at example 5. Notice we are skipping around with the example problems, and we'll look at those other example problems in class. Many of them are very long and have a lot of drawing and shading, and it's easier to just look at and to be able to name off. So example 5 says write 4 and 3/100ths as a decimal number. So I want 4, I know is my whole number, it's going to go before my decimal point, and 3/100ths. Now I know the first place value after my decimal point is the tenths place. It's not going to go into tenths place, it's not going to go right after my decimal point. I needed my hundredths place. That means I'm going to need a 0 in my tenths place because I don't have any tenths. I just have 3/100ths. So I have 0 in my tenths place and 3 in my hundredths place. So that says 4 and 3/100ths. I'll go ahead and write this here. I have my tenths and I have my hundredths. It's going a bit off of the board. You might not be able to read it, but it says tenths and hundredths, so this is 4 and 3/100ths. I just read the last place value. Okay, the practice set problems that you're going to do, at least for now, is letter F, G, H, and I. Will do the other ones in class. There's quite a bit of ones with drawings and takes up a lot of space. So this is what I'm going to have you look at for now. Now what you're going to do with these common fractions and mixed numbers is you're going to write them as decimal numbers. So 9/10ths, write as a decimal number. 39 hundredths, write as a decimal number. 1 and 7/10ths, write as a decimal number. 2 and 99 hundredths, write as a decimal number. We'll go over your answers in class and check for your understanding. Thank you very much for listening.